12 hours before the storm makes landfall, the eastern coast of Luzon sinks into an eerie stillness. The sea is coated in a pitch-black layer, thick as oil. It doesn't even twitch, not a single ripple. It's the Dead Sea phenomenon, when atmospheric pressure bears down on the water's surface, so hard that even the waves can't lift their heads. The air turns dense and heavy, reeking of briny, damp, and crushed seaweed. One breath in and it feels like your lungs have been plastered with mud. The sun doesn't set in the blazing tropical orange it usually does. Instead, the western sky bruises into a deadly purple, like a blood clot on a corpse. Dragon-scale clouds hang low, pressing down against the rooftops of high-rises. They swell under their own weight like toxic udders stacked on top of one another, blotting out the entire horizon. A sickly, feeble yellow light washes over concrete walls, making the whole city look like it's coming down with chills. People can be blind to disaster, but animals can't. Nature's biological radar had been sounding the death siren for a long time in Batangas province, about 37 miles south of Manila. In the blazing midday heat, millions of bats suddenly pour out of the limestone caves, flying in blind panic, slamming into the windows of people's homes. Their bodies thud onto the scorching asphalt in the suburbs. House dogs begin howling in unison, not sharp, not angry, but long and mournful, echoing from one block to the next. It's a lament for a funeral that hasn't even happened yet. Stray cats crawl deep into the drains, fur bristling, eyes half open, staring into a blank, directionless void, as if they can see death sharpening his scythe right in front of them. Underground, columns of fire ants surge into migration, forming blood-red streams and climbing the tallest trees they can find. They know the ground is about to stop being safe. But the creatures considered the smartest on the planet, humans choose to ignore it. Manila, the capital. 8 p.m. On TV, weather bulletins warn of a Category 5 super typhoon. But Filipinos are far too used to storms. Every year, they see 20 typhoons pass through. To them, a typhoon is just strong wind and heavy rain. A day off work, a chance to stock up on a few extra packs of instant noodles and reinforce the tin roof. Familiarity breeds contempt. They tape their windows in an X, believing those thin, flimsy lines will hold the glass against winds that can tear concrete apart. They don't know that Hades doesn't come alone. About 19 miles beneath Lake Taal, a vast freshwater lake sitting on the mouth of an ancient supervolcano, magma is stirring. The sudden drop in atmospheric pressure caused by Typhoon Hades' eye sucks molten rock upward. The Earth's crust here is thinning by the second. The lake starts bubbling with sulfur gas, stinking of rotten eggs. But in the dark of night, no one can see the water boiling and churning. And up north, the aging Angat hydroelectric dam strains to hold 7.1 billion cubic feet of water after a long rainy season. A hairline crack had appeared at the base of the dam last week, hidden beneath a film of green algae. No engineer noticed it. That crack is waiting for one final jolt to rip open the wall that separates life from death. 3 disasters, 3 monsters. One from the sky, one from beneath the earth, and one created by human hands. They're silently closing in on the rendezvous point. Tonight, Luzon isn't an island. It's a giant rat trap already set. Neon signs still flicker with arrogant pride over the glittering Makati district. People are still sleeping soundly inside their reinforced concrete boxes, dreaming about tomorrow. But for Luzon, tomorrow will never come. Because the countdown clock has just struck 2:15 a.m. At that moment, the sky over Luzon is no longer the sky. It collapses. The first thing to hit land isn't the wind, it's the sound. A shriek that rips eardrums open, piercing and razor-sharp, like metal grinding against metal. It's the outer edge of Hades' eye wall clawing at the atmosphere. And then the wind slams in. Not in gusts, but as a compressed mass of air, solid as steel, smashing straight into Luzon's seafront at 196 miles per hour. The tempered glass panes of seaside hotels don't just crack, they explode. The pressure difference blasts them outward like glass grenades, burying shards into palm trunks, and into concrete walls. Tin roofs and billboard sheets are ripped off their steel frames, floating in the air like dead leaves, slashing through the night, turning into invisible guillotines. But that's only the meteorological overture. South of Manila, about 50 miles from the storm's core, another monster has just been awakened. At Lake Taal, the atmospheric pressure right above the volcano's mouth drops to an unimaginable level. That plunge yanks out the cork that's been restraining the magma below the Earth's shutters. Not the shaking of an ordinary quake, but the convulsions of a body about to vomit. A blast tears through the planet's crust, drowning out even the super typhoon's roar. Taal erupts. This is a phreatomagmatic explosion, a steam blast, when 2,192 degrees Fahrenheit magma meets the lake's icy water and the water flashes instantly into vapor. The entire little island in the middle of the lake is blown apart. A column of boiling water, mud, rock, and ash shoots straight into the stratosphere at supersonic speed, punching through the storm clouds swirling overhead. A sight never seen before, the mating of storm and fire. And this is where the convergence begins. The volcanic ash column, carrying billions of tiny stone particles, sharp as razors and loaded with positive charge, plunges straight into the belly of Super Typhoon Hades, where the clouds are packed with negatively charged ice crystals. The result is the most insane electromagnetic storm imaginable. The night sky is no longer dark. It flares bright as thousands of lightning bolts strike at the same time, crisscrossing like a net of death. Thunder no longer cracks in separate booms. It rolls without pause like cannon fire, shaking foundations all the way in the capital's downtown. The storm drinks in the heat from the volcano, and Super Typhoon Hades becomes a gigantic heat engine, like it's just been pumped full of nuclear fuel. The eye that was tightening suddenly yawns wide open. Glowing from the volcanic lightning inside, it is no longer a tropical storm. It has evolved. It becomes a grotesque hybrid weather system, a self-powered machine of destruction. Then the rain pours down. People hiding under tables, inside closets, suddenly hear the sound of rain hitting the roof change. Not the soft drumming of water, but a harsh, rattling crash like someone is shoveling sand and gravel onto corrugated metal. It's mud rain. Or, more precisely, acid slurry volcanic ash mixed into storm vapor, forming a thick, gray concrete like muck. This liquid is twice as heavy as normal rainwater. Where it falls, it sticks. It bears down on roofs already buckling under the wind. In the suburbs, single-story homes begin to collapse. Not blown away, but crushed. Roofs cave in under the weight of tons of soaked mud, burying families who are clinging to each other and praying underneath. Cars parked along the street are sealed in a gray mud shell within minutes, looking like lifeless boulders. Windshields are scoured by ash, turning cloudy like they've been sanded down. The air reeks of sulfur mixed with the salty stench of the sea. The smell of hell. Anyone who didn't seal their windows in time starts coughing violently, lungs burning as if they're inhaling ground glass. Nature has finished its preparation. The wind has peaked, the volcano has reloaded, and the sky has dropped its deadly electric net. Now humanity's greatest man-made works. Proud seawalls, bustling ports, and towering skyscrapers stand naked before the wrath. They're as fragile as papier-mâché models. Offshore, a black wall of water 49 feet high, a meteorological tsunami has been sculpted by wind and pressure. It begins moving toward shore. Carrying the force of a liquid nuclear bomb, the first barrier is about to break, and Manila is still drowning in darkness, trembling as it waits for the finishing blow. 3:05 a.m. The border between ocean and land is officially erased. What slams into Luzon's western coast now is a vertical wall of black water, 49 feet high, about the height of a 5-story building. It doesn't wash onto shore. It rams straight into land with the kinetic force of a freight train hauling tens of thousands of tons of steel. Look at the port of Manila, the beating heart of the nation's trade. Those massive orange gantry cranes, towering overhead, like steel giants, are trembling now. Typhoon Hades' winds reached Beaufort Force 22, combined with a surge, creating an unimaginable sideways shove. Steel girders several feet thick begin to bend. A piercing screech rings out, and the steel giants topple, crashing down like dominoes, crushing the warehouses below. But the most horrific scene is at the container terminal. A cargo ship displacing about 33,000 tons lies at anchor. It's far too heavy to be blown away by the wind, but the sea level surges, turning it into a drifting bullet. The tsunami heaves the ship up and snaps the steel mooring lines, cables as thick as an adult's thigh. The severed lines whip through the air, slicing high-voltage light poles in half like a hot knife through butter. The ship loses control. The waves hurl it straight into the concrete breakwater, its steel bow slamming into the seawall. No sparks fly. Only the dull, deep thud of concrete being ground into powder. The hull tears through hundreds of containers, dumping them into the sea. The colorful metal boxes bob and drift, clanging as they smash into one another, turning the ocean into a chaotic soup of industrial debris. Roxas Boulevard, Manila's pride, home to its famous sea dike. The concrete storm wall that has withstood hundreds of typhoons faces an enemy tonight the engineers never accounted for: heavy water. The seawater now is no longer clean. It's been mixed with millions of tons of volcanic ash falling from Lake Taal, forming a thick, muddy slurry 1.5 times heavier than normal water. When this salted mud wall slams into the sea dike, it doesn't shatter right away, it gets abraded. The pressure rips up the asphalt on the boulevard, stripping bare the rock and soil beneath. Water pours over the barrier, not spilling, but launching over. Ornamental palm trees along the road are uprooted instantly, whipping over car roofs like wooden arrows. The water invades 5-star beachfront hotels. In the lobby, thick tempered glass doors about 0.8 inches bow for a split second, then explode. A black surge rolls into the banquet hall, sweeping away luxury velvet sofas and smashing glittering crystal chandeliers. Luxury and ruin are separated by nothing but a thin pane of glass. But the real tragedy isn't in the skyscrapers or the port. It's in Tondo, the largest slum in Manila. Here, there's no reinforced concrete, only rotten wood, rusted tin, and fragile hope. When the water wall hits, Tondo doesn't collapse, it evaporates. In a blink, thousands of makeshift homes are erased completely. No trace of walls, posts, or roofs remains. Everything becomes a gigantic mass of trash, spinning in the raging current. Sheets of roofing tin become the deadliest weapons. The tornado winds whip them across the ground, spinning like circular saw blades. They carve into trees, carve into the few walls still standing, creating a terrifying clatter of metal on metal screams. The floodwater is now pitch black like ink, thick with mud, animal carcasses, and splintered debris from homes. It snakes into every alley of the city, rising to the second floor of houses in just 10 minutes. The sea has swallowed the land. Luzon's shoreline has been pushed 3.1 miles inland. Double-decker buses are swept away, bobbing like iron coffins down the flooded avenues. Their headlights still burn beneath the murky water, casting ghostly beams, illuminating lives struggling to stay afloat. And this is only the assault from the sea. Up north, high in the mountains, the third monster is preparing its finishing strike. The Anga Dam. That 430-foot-tall concrete beast is straining to hold back 7.1 billion cubic feet of water. Storm rain has been pounding here for 12 straight hours. The reservoir has licked the dam's lip, but the truly terrifying thing isn't the water, it's the earth. Aftershocks from the Taal eruption spread through the ground like invisible waves, seeking out the weakest points in the Earth's crust. And they find the crack beneath the base of Angat Dam. No warning, no sirens. The massive concrete wall, tens of feet thick, is blown open by the water like a dry cracker snapping in half. A deep, muffled boom shakes the entire valley. The whole dam body collapses. The water monster is unleashed. Billions of gallons of imprisoned water roar downhill with pent-up fury, forming a 98-foot vertical column, white, raging, and charging toward the downstream. This flood isn't a gentle river, it's a liquid meat grinder. Along the way, it rips out century-old trees and sweeps boulders the size of trucks, as it pulverizes villages at the dam's foot in seconds. Wooden homes turn into splinters, dissolving into the muddy torrent. The death surge races down the Pasig River, straight for Manila's heart at 50 miles per hour. Manila is now caught in a vice. Up front, the tsunami from the Philippine Sea crushes inward. Behind, the flash flood from Angat Dam slams in. In the middle, volcanic mud rain pours from the sky. The Pasig River, the dragon winding through the city, suddenly becomes a colossal python. It swallows everything. The river rises 16 feet in just 15 minutes. Makati's financial district, the symbol of the Philippines' prosperity, becomes the first victim. Busy boulevards turn into raging rivers. Floodwater from Angat, stained with red mud, collides with the pitch-black saltwater from the sea. The two currents spiral into each other, forming killer whirlpools right in the middle of intersections. Look down at the subway system and the underpasses. The EDSA underpass entrance becomes a gigantic funnel. Water gulps down into it with a monstrous pull. Cars trapped inside can't escape in time. The water climbs past the tires, past the windows, then swallows the ceiling within minutes. Headlights wink out under the murky flood, turning the tunnel into a sealed mass grave. At subway stations, water pours down the stairwells like man-made waterfalls, majestic but deadly. Platforms flood. Trains lie still, drowned, only handrails barely visible above the black water. And then the fateful moment arrives. The finishing blow, Guadalupe Bridge, the main artery linking the city's two banks. The flood from Angat Dam carries a massive bullet with it. The wreck of a sand barge torn from its moorings. It drifts freely at rocket speed. That 1,000-ton steel mass slams straight into the bridge pier midstream. The metal impact rings out like a death bell. The reinforced concrete pier snaps in two. The great bridge convulses, cables whip through the air like live wires. The deck splits, tilts, and collapses into the screaming river. Cars and buses caught on the bridge slide into the raging current like toys tossed aside by a child. Red brake lights draw desperate streaks through the night, then vanish. The bridges collapse, drags down the high-voltage lines crossing the river. The snapped cables fall and hit the riverside main transformer station. A series of blasts shakes the ground. Orange fireballs erupt, blazing so brightly they light up a whole stretch of black sky, fire meeting water. A surreal scene. Oil from the transformer station spreads across the floodwater, catches and burns in raging sheets. The flooded river becomes a river of fire flowing through the city. Then, abruptly, everything goes out. The power grid across the entire island of Luzon collapses completely. A city of 13 million sinks into absolute darkness. Only the ghostly flicker of lightning remains in the blood-red sky. It flashes over skyscrapers, now standing bare and exposed, like gigantic gravestones in a boundless sea of water. The screaming has stopped. Only the growl of water, the moan of wind, and the crashing of a civilization just defeated by nature. Tonight, Manila is dead. Dawn arrives. But it brings no hope. Typhoon Hades has dissipated. Taal has stopped screaming. And the silence is more horrifying than last night's roar. No car horns, no bird song, no people calling out. Only the trickle of water threading through cracks in shattered concrete, sounding like the earth itself splitting open. The map has been redrawn forever. Lake Taal, Manila Bay, and the mainland have merged into one. The Pearl of the Orient is now nothing but a vast ash-gray swamp. The green of vegetation, the white of the city gone. Everything is coated in a crust of hardened volcanic mud, cold and lifeless. The proud skyscrapers of Makati, once symbols of power and money. Now only their tips rise above the murky water. They stand isolated and alone, like gigantic glass tombstones, reflecting a morning sky. Beneath the thick mud lie supercars, the shanty towns, and unfinished dreams. Volcanic ash has flattened every gap between rich and poor. In disaster, every life is equal. In death, we often boast that humans have conquered nature. We build sea dikes to hold back the ocean, dams to block rivers. But last night, Mother Nature proved a brutal truth. Humanity's brilliant civilization is as fragile as a sandcastle before the tide.